Sir, you can just say hello if it is.
Hello, can you all hear me? Wonderful. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yes, good evening everyone. On the behalf of the entire family of Rao's IAS, I'd like to welcome D. Subbarao sir, who has served as RBI governor from 2008 to 2013. Sir is an alumni of Rao's IAS study circle. Sir was under the personal guidance and mentorship of the legendary Rao sir, and he topped All India Civil Service examination in the year 1972. As an IAS officer, Sir has served in various capacities. Some of the high profile jobs that he has performed is he has served as a Finance Secretary of Government of Andhra Pradesh, Finance Secretary of Government of India, and he went on to become a lead economist at World Bank. Sir became RBI governor in the year 2008, and incidentally it so happened that within few weeks the Indian economy faced the problem of the global financial crisis. During his tenure, Indian economy was going through extremely turbulent times. Obviously, one was global financial crisis. The other thing was a high rate of inflation and the taper tantrums. Remember, we discussed in the class, taper tantrums. So, as a RBI governor, Sir has successfully steered the Indian economy through these turbulent times that economy has witnessed in the recent years. After ending his tenure as RBI governor in 2013, Sir has now been teaching in various foreign universities. Apart from that, Sir has recently written a book which is very interestingly titled as Just a Mercenary. We'll later discuss the unique title of that particular book. But when you read this particular book, I do think that this book is not just a journey of his civil services. This book also provides valuable inputs for anyone who is aspiring to get into civil services. In his book, he has highlighted the various ethical and moral dilemmas that he faced as a civil servant. He has incorporated a lot of values in his book, which I'm very sure they'll come in handy for you guys when you're preparing for GS paper 4, that is ethics and integrity. So without wasting much time, let us first give a huge round of applause to D. Subbarao sir. Now I invite Sir to speak to you students.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Good evening to all of you. Wonderful to be here in the Rose IAS Study Circle. When I look at you, my mind goes back 50 years. When I was like you, an IAS aspirant, a civil service aspirant, studying in the Rose Study Circle, I'm privileged and proud to have been associated with the Rose Study Circle. As your faculty and your director might have told you, it used to be in Connaught Place at that time, much smaller institution. But over the last 50 years, I am happy to note that the Rose IAS Study Circle stands out in the industry of IAS coaching for the traditions and integrity and the quality it maintains. So I'm proud to say that I was associated with the Rose Study Circle, and part of my success, not just in the civil service exam, but later in my career and in my life has been because of what I learned here. Over the next 1 year, you're going to train very hard, you're going to work very hard with a single-minded goal of getting into the civil services. I wish you all success. I hope all of you get in. But in the real world, it's quite possible that some of you may not get in. But that's okay. Don't treat that as a failure in life don't treat that as a failure of your education in the Rouse Study Circle, or don't treat that as a failure of wherever you studied. Because setbacks are common in life, are part of life, and you learn from failure. And whatever you learn here, it's not as if it's going to be wasted if you don't get into the civil services. What you're learning here is not just material to crack the civil service exam, but what you're learning here is to prepare you for life, prepare you for a career, whatever you do. So I hope that all of you make the civil services, but if you don't make it, which is a mathematical probability, don't think that that's the end of life. There is life beyond civil services. Okay? But I wish you all the very best. Yeah, thank you. I was asking your director what I should tell you because, you are all training very hard. I appeared for the exam 50 years ago. The world has changed. India has changed. The IAS has changed. The IAS exam has changed. The IAS aspirants have changed. You people come with a different way of learning. I'm talking about the dark ages. We had no telephones, no computers. We could hardly access even textbooks or guidebooks. Today you have knowledge just in one instrument, in the telephone. So there's a different way of learning. Okay? But that's a difference in the technique of learning. But what value you get from learning is the same. What it was 50 years ago, it's still the same today, and it'll be the same when some of you stand on this side of the podium and talk to your grandchildren 50 years from now. I thought they said they gave me 10 minutes to talk to you. Okay, so so I thought I'll tell you about some of my experiences. Okay? When I went for the IAS interview, I was still studying in IIT Kanpur at that time. My interview was in the first week of March. The first slot in the day, 9 o'clock in the morning. I took an overnight train from Kanpur to Delhi, arrived here at 5 o'clock, went to my friend's house, changed, showered, pressed my new suit, wore that. My friend's mother gave me breakfast. I had that, and I was ready by 7:30. My interview was at 9 o'clock. So then, I always travel by bus in Delhi. But that day I said, since it is my special day, interview day, I'll take an auto rickshaw. But my father kept writing me letters saying that no, you should take a taxi because, auto rickshaw might be stressful and all that. He was very anxious that I should arrive at the UPSC with a clean mind, not flustered by all the traffic and all that. So here I was, for the first time in my life, wearing a new suit, for the first time in my life, sitting in a taxi, going to the UPSC. I was there by 8:45 or 8:50, well, in good time. By 9:05 or 9:10, I was in the interview board. And good morning, sir, good morning, sir. Then the chairman said, are you still at IIT Kanpur? I said, yes, sir. When did you come into Delhi? I came this morning, sir. Are you getting back to Kanpur after this? Yes, sir. When? Tonight. So when do you finish at IIT? So another 2 months. And then, that conversation, just warming up, took about 30 seconds. Then he looked at one of the members. There used to be only men on the board at that time. Okay, I'm talking about 50 years ago, no madams. So he looked at one of the other members and said, like asking him to carry it forward, do you read newspapers, Mr. Subbarao? Yes, sir. What newspaper do you read? The Statesman, sir. So did you read this morning's paper? I was flustered because I had not read that morning's paper. And the chairman came to my rescue. He said, look, he came from Kanpur by an overnight train. He was preparing for this interview. It's still dark and damp. Delhi in those days, 50 years ago, even in the first week of March, used to be quite cold and damp and dark, not like today. So he wouldn't have had time to see the newspaper. Then he said, have you read today's newspaper? He tried to make it light-hearted. So the other member smiled and said, okay, did you read yesterday's newspaper? Yes, sir. Tell me, what was the front page picture on the Statesman? These days, if I look at a newspaper, I forget what I saw in 5 seconds. but I was much younger like you at that time. So I remembered what was the front page picture. It was I said, sir, it's Muslims celebrating Muharram. Celebrating? Is Muharram a festival to celebrate? I flustered. This is second time I was flustered in 1 minute. Then he said, Muharram is not a festival to celebrate. Muharram is an occasion to mourn the death of the grandson of the Prophet. It's a martyrdom of his grandson. It's an occasion for mourning. I said, thank you, sir. But then he said, you've been in Kanpur for 2 years. Kanpur has a large majority of Muslim population. You should have known by this. But I was again, flustered. Where's my interview going? On any other occasion, I would have been defensive. I would have said, sir, Kanpur IIT campus is far away from the city. We don't mingle with the population. But I was so tongue-tied that I couldn't even come to my defense. Thank God that I didn't, if I had actually defended myself, it would have come as absolute stupidity. I was so tongue-tied that I didn't defend myself. Then he said, which sect of Muslims observes Muharram? Then the chairman looked at him and he said, he doesn't even know what Muharram is. Why do you ask him all this? So within the first 2 minutes of my interview, that interview by which I set so much store, completely dissolved. I said, this is finished. Now they'll go through the motions of interviewing me for 15, 20 minutes and then, send me away. But then from those 2 minutes, my interview actually lasted for about 35 to 40 minutes. The quality of the interview improved. We talked about Mrs. Gandhi's style of governance. We talked about center-state relations. We talked about the differences between IIT Kharagpur, where I studied, and IIT Kanpur. We talked about difference between farmers in Andhra Pradesh and farmers in Punjab. We talked about Nixon's China visit. Talked about Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. I don't know how many of you studied physics. We talked about existentialism. So the quality of the interview went up. And I went on to get the second highest marks in the interview for that year. One of the lessons I learned from that experience is that first impressions are always wrong, not always, sometimes wrong. Even if it goes wrong, you can still improve. You still have a fighting chance. So don't give up hope. Things will improve. Okay? What else should I tell you? Okay? When I was appointed governor in 2008, Dr. Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister. I went to call on him to thank him for appointing me as the governor. You must have seen those South Block, North Block offices, no? Ministry of Finance, I was Finance Secretary at that time. That was in the North Block. I walked across to the South Block to the Prime Minister's office. I'd met the PM, he had known me, I'd met him in meetings, in discussions and all that, but this is the first one-on-one meeting between him and me. There was no one else in the office. So one of the things about Dr. Manmohan Singh is that he's a great listener. People... being a good listener is one of the qualities of good leadership. Remember that, listening. So he's a good listener. When the other party is a good listener, the burden of carrying on the conversation rests on you, right? So we talked about economy, Delhi, difference between living in Mumbai and living in Delhi, RBI, economy, etc., etc. Then. After we've been in the conversation for about 10 minutes, I asked him, sir, you were yourself governor. Dr. Manmohan Singh was governor of RBI in the early 1980s. So I said, sir, you were yourself governor. Do you have any advice to give me? He said, Subbarao, what advice do I give you? You've seen the country, you've seen the world, you've seen India. You've been in the IAS, you're familiar with the people's problems. As Finance Secretary, you were a director on the board of the RBI. You know what the RBI does. Do whatever you think is in the public interest. I'm sure you'll do well. And he dodged that question in a very well-meaning way. After that went on for about 5 minutes, I got up to say, thank you, sir, and I got up to leave. Then quite graciously, He, from the other side of the table, he walked across. I walked to the door, which is like the door there. I walked from here to there, and he accompanied me to the door. As I opened the door, he put his hand on my shoulder and said, Subbarao, a couple of minutes ago you asked for my advice. I thought I'll give you some advice. And the advice I want to give you is this, that, you know, you've been an IAS officer for 30, 35 years. You mingled with the world. You've seen India, you've seen the people, you understand the problems. But when you go into the RBI, the Reserve Bank of India, it's a different world, it's a different institution. You will get so involved in the numbers, you know, inflation rate, credit growth, interest rate, money supply, that you will forget that there are real people behind that. So he said that. I said, thank you, sir, and then I walked away. That advice that he gave me, I could not relate to that much when he said that. I just walked back to my office. But when I worked in the RBI for about 6 months, I could relate to that advice. The advice that he gave resonated with me. You know, because one of the mandates, or the primary mandate of the Reserve Bank of India, is to maintain price stability, low and steady inflation. Inflation is a regressive tax. You know what a regressive tax is? A regressive tax is that it hurts poor people more than it hurts well-off people. The price of this shirt goes up from 1,500 to 1,600 rupees. I may not even notice it. You know, I bought this shirt last month. If I go out buy another shirt this month, I may not even notice it. But if the price of the bus ticket goes up from 20 to 22 rupees, the price of rice goes up from 40 to 42 rupees, poor people notice it. Okay? So for poor people, it's a very, very critical thing. What I realized was, in the Reserve Bank of India, you see Governor Shaktikanta Das doing the policy review every 2 months, coming on the TV and all that, right? In the lead up to that policy review, the Reserve Bank consults stakeholders. For example, it consults with banks, non-bank companies, financial markets, economists. It consults the government. It consults farmers' groups to get their opinion, to understand what they want, and to get an exposure to their concerns, their problems. But the Reserve Bank of India does not say, okay, get me 50 poor people from the street because I want to know what their experience is. Okay? So here are the top economists of the country deciding on how to manage inflation without actually experiencing prices in the market. You know, I used to ask my senior management, how many of you have gone to the market to buy anything? Very few. Okay, very few actually go and buy stuff on a daily basis because they have servants or there's somebody else doing that. But only inflation is what the prices that people experience in the market. We're not consulting them. We're not keeping our ear close to the ground. And I could relate to inflation. Well, you know, as a child, I was brought up in a low middle class family. I could see my parents struggling to make both ends meet. So that keeping your ear close to the ground is a very, very important thing. I could tell you lots of experience of that, but I won't tell you now because Basav is eager to ask me questions. But just you're also eager to ask me questions. But one other thing I want to tell you. You know, I asked my sons, they're grown up now, why are you not exercising? We're very busy. You know, why are you not reading books? We're very busy. Okay, Mrs. Gandhi, who was Prime Minister, came to visit us when we were in the academy under training back in 1974. Mrs. Gandhi. And lots of things that day, but she spoke to all of us. And she gave a very banal speech. You know, if you're the Prime Minister and you're talking to IAS officer trainees, what do you say? You say that you're all smart people, you're all, you know, the best in the country, you're talented. I'm grateful that the country has you, and we depend on you to deliver the usual stuff that any Prime Minister would tell IAS officer trainees, right? And I can't, it was so banal that nothing registered. You forgot that after half an hour after that. She went back and sat down. And somebody, the president of the mess committee, who is in some sense the president of the IAS Officer Trainees Association, he came to propose a vote of thanks. When you, I know one of you are going to propose a vote of thanks to me, this is what you will say. So we're grateful to you for having come all the way from Hyderabad to Delhi to talk to us, spending your valuable time with us. When Mrs. Gandhi heard that, what he said was, we're grateful to the Prime Minister for taking time out of a busy schedule to come and talk to us. A nice thing to say. That when Mrs. Gandhi heard that, she got up from that, and this guy, she put her hand on this guy's shoulder, told him to go away, and took the mic again. And she said, this I hear very often, that I'm very busy, that I'm taking time out. It is true that as Prime Minister I'm very busy. I have a lot of things to do. But if I've chosen to come to Mussoorie and talk to IAS officer trainees, it is because I believe it is part of my work. I am busy because I do things that are part of my work. She also said, I don't know what an IAS officer's job content is. I've never been an IAS officer myself. But a week ago, I went to call on an ailing uncle of mine. I think she was referring to Mr. B.K. Nehru, who was in the ICS, Mrs. Gandhi's nephew. He was ailing in Lucknow. I went to call on him. When he saw me, he was lying in the bed. He said, Beti, Baito, made us sit down on his cot and said, you've been the Prime Minister for 5 years now. You must be very, very busy. But I don't think you've been as busy as I was when I was the district magistrate. This is what B.K. Nehru told Mrs. Gandhi. She said, I don't know how busy you are, but don't be ever so busy that you can't do important things in life. Okay? Work-life balance is important. She said, as Prime Minister, I get to read a book at least every fortnight. I have a meal with friends every week. I write a letter. Those days we used to write letters. I write a letter. So you can never be so busy that you can't do important things. Prioritize. Okay? So I will stop here. Thank you very much for listening to me. Once again, I wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Please sit. Please sit. Yes. I'll get.
Actually, no, that's fine.
Cameras.
They are from all over the country?
Yes, sir. From across India, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone from Arunachal Pradesh?
Arunachal Pradesh, anyone?
Yeah, there are two. Right? Very good. Yeah.
Sir, I have certain couple of questions.
Yeah.
Yes. So the first question, sir, you and I, we come from the same school, Sainik School. You have studied from Sainik School, Korukonda, and I have studied from Sainik School, Bijapur. Whatever limited achievements and success that I have had in my life so far, I owe it to my school. Sir, my question to you is, how did life in Sainik School, Korukonda transform you as a person?
Thank you, Basa, for that question. I was privileged to have gone to a Sainik school, and I learned a lot of things. One of the things, we used to have a principal, Commander Almeida, he's no more. One of the things he used to tell us is that do whatever you have to do with complete passion and dedication. Now, these days, you're all multitaskers. The new management technique these days is multitasking. My daughter-in-law, for example, is making breakfast for the kids, talking to her mother in Delhi, and at the same time, doing a conference call. What he told us, that stuck in my mind, that do whatever you have to do with complete dedication. Is to say, when you're eating, eat when you have to eat. Play when you have to play, study when you have to study. Do one thing at a time. That's a remarkable thing. Lots, used to teach us to sing the national anthem. I don't know, there is a standard for how long the national anthem should be sung. I don't know the exact time, but 52 seconds. There's the Army Armed Forces standard, so there's national standard. Commander Almeida used to tell us that if you sing the national anthem, you have to sing it like it's your sole purpose of your life is to sing the national anthem. Heads held high, chin up, shoulders back, standard attention, and sing with full gusto the national anthem. So those are some of the values I learned from the school. And we used to be, like all of you have been taught to be disciplined, both at home by your parents and by your teachers in school, and so were Basav and me in Sainik school. But what Commander Almeida taught us was not only to be disciplined, but to enjoy being disciplined.
Yes.
That there is some enjoyment that comes from being disciplined. There's some enjoyment from being disciplined in the sense of being on time. President Obama, he wrote a book after he demitted office, and one of the things he said was that whenever I went for a meeting, I always tried to be there 5 minutes before the time. This is the president of the US, right? Virtually everybody on the planet is dying to meet the president of the US. They will wait not just 10 minutes, they'll wait for 10 days or 10 years to meet him. Here, the president of the US was actually saying that I go there 5 minutes before time because I want to be disciplined. It's a courtesy to the other side. So those are some of the things that I learned in the Sainik school, and I write that under the chapter of enjoy making your bed first thing in the morning.
Yes. So that's actually my next question. As far as the students are concerned, sir, as you rightly mentioned in the book, when you get up in the morning, the first thing that you should do is you should make your bed. Sir, but can you tell the students as to why they should worry about something as trivial as making bed when they have much other things to worry about?
Actually, I borrowed that, make your bed in the morning, from Admiral McMarshall, I think, right? Admiral McMarshall, who was a US Navy chief, he gave a convocation address, I think at the University of Texas, about 10 leadership lessons. One of the things he says is make your bed first thing in the morning. Now you might think, I'm preparing for the IAS, I'm preparing for the civil service, I've got to go to institute and learn from Abhishek sir and Basav sir, and making bed, I come back and sleep in the night. What the hell? But making your bed first thing in the morning gives you an enormous heads up for preparing for the day. First thing, it gives you a sense of accomplishment. One thing you've done. Okay. Second, it gives you discipline. Third, having a set role like that prepares you for the day. You don't get up first thing in the morning and say, what do I do now? No, it just gives you on the routine. And fourth thing is, if you had a nice day, if you aced the trial exam or mock exam they gave you in Rouse Study Circle, you go home, study, and then you get into a neat bed and say, okay, I've accomplished. On the other hand, if you had a bad day, you didn't do so well in the mock test, at least you say, I have a neat bed to sleep on. Yeah. So making your bed first thing in the morning might look like a very simple, unproductive thing to do, but I believe that it can be a tremendously enriching experience for your life and for your career.
Thank you. So the title of the book. The title of the book is very interesting, Just a Mercenary. I just want to tell the students that who is a mercenary basically? Mercenary is someone who is being paid to do the job. A mercenary does the job only because he is paid to do it. A mercenary is never dedicated to the larger cause. Sir, I have read your entire book. As a reader, sir, I never felt that you are actually a mercenary anytime. You always work for the larger cause. Like when you're the district collector at Kamam district, you worked for the tribal upliftment. when you are the finance secretary, you work for the larger cause of fiscal prudence. I, as a reader, never felt that you are just a mercenary, sir. But my question, sir, by the time we reach the end of the book, you did write that you are still undecided as to whether you are just a mercenary or whether you work for a larger cause. So why are you still undecided, sir?
Thank you for Basa for that question. When I considered the title for this book, I considered a few alternatives and ultimately decided on this, just a mercenary. The reason is the following. As people of this country, as citizens of this country, we are prone to complaining. This country is so unfair, unjust, unequal. There is no opportunity for merit. All of us do that. I used to do that too. But when I look back on my life and my career dispassionately, I find that this country, this society has given me so much. I went to a Sainik school with a government scholarship. I went to an IIT through the tough JEE and got an IIT education again with a government scholarship. I got to join the IAS because there is still merit-based recruitment into the IAS. I rose to become the become the finance secretary, and I became the governor. So the society has given me a lot of things. And whatever job I had to do, I tried my best to do what I was mandated to do, to deliver the best. The question always that ran in my mind was, am I doing this just because I'm being paid? Or am I driven by a larger cause? Mercenary, as Basa explained, is somebody who does something just because he or she is paid without any commitment to a larger cause. They do their best, but they don't care for the ultimate result. For example, there is this war between Russia and Ukraine today. There are third country people fighting. They're not just Russians and Ukraine. So people who go and fight, they fight for Ukraine. Ukraine pays for them. Tomorrow Russia will offer them a higher pay. They will shift sides and fight for Russia against Ukraine. So they don't care whether Russia wins or Ukraine wins. They're mercenary. They do their best. They fight. But they have no commitment to a larger cause. So the question that runs in my mind is, was I motivated just by the need to give back, to do your best because you're being paid, or was I driven by a larger cause of returning to society for all that you've returned? Okay. Thank you for saying all those nice things, that I'm not a mercenary. My parents are no more, but they would have been very happy to hear you endorse that. So thank you.
So my next question is with respect to one of the foundational values of civil services, that is neutrality, sir. Mm-hmm. So when we say civil service neutrality, it has two facets. One is political neutrality, and the other facet of neutrality is, as an IAS officer, when we are required to implement the laws, even if we are not dedicated to the larger cause, you're not dedicated to the ideology, still you should complete that particular job with utmost commitment and dedication. That is one of the foundational values of civil services. So quoting from your book, if I may, so one place where I thought that you could be a mercenary was when you were asked to set up liquor bottling plants in the state of Andhra Pradesh.
Yeah.
You are actually not dedicated to the larger cause, but still the kind of commitment and dedication that you showed in setting up of liquor plants meant that IAS officers in certain cases have to be mercenary. Is that true, sir?
I would not agree with that completely.
Okay, sir.
It is true, it is the case that as IAS officers, indeed as civil servants, you're subordinate to the political executive. Your job is to advise. Having given advice, if the political leadership decides the other way, you have to implement that with complete dedication and commitment. You cannot say that I do not agree with this. You've given your advice and the politicians have decided some other way. But then you have to take that decision, no matter that you have a different view. you have to implement that. Unless the politicians are telling you to do something irregular or illegal, then you can stand back and say, I will not do it. Otherwise, you have to do it. Let me give you a concrete example, just a very neutral example. Suppose you believe that at the primary school level, there should be no boys' schools and girls' schools. Okay? But the politicians decide, no, we must have separate boys' schools and separate girls' schools. You believe that's not good for growth of children. That is your own view. You argue your case. The politicians decide that no, we'll have separate schools for girls and boys. Then you sit back and say, no, I won't do it. I won't implement that with full dedication because that is not how I feel. So there you have to understand your role as the civil servant, that your role is to advise. But having given the advice, if the politicians decide any other way, you have to implement that. Let me give you another concrete example. I write about that in the book. The 2G spectrum, when you were all in high school or sometime in 2007-8, it was a big scandal. Okay? The government wanted to, I don't know if any of your subsequent questions is about this.
No.
Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about that. The 2G spectrum, the government decided in 2008 that they will give additional telecom licenses in every telecom circle in the country by calling for bids or whatever, not by calling for applications. But the Department of Telecom decided that they will give license, fresh 2G spectrum, at the price discovered in 2001. We're talking about 2008-9. When the issue came to me as Finance Secretary, I wrote my opinion saying that it is inappropriate to give spectrum away in 2008 at the 2001 price, because between 2001 and 2008, we have realized as a country and we've realized around the world that spectrum is a more valuable commodity than we initially thought. So some other scarcity premium must accrue to the government. As Finance Secretary, I wrote that. But then the government decided, after lots of discussion, the government decided, no, we will give it at the 2001 price. Why? Because they believed that giving a 2001 price, which is lower than the 2008 price, would mean deeper penetration of telecom. If telecom penetrates more, it would give lots of efficiency gains to the economy. So there was clear logic. It is against my view. But still, there was another view, and they decided that I cannot say no, I will stand by. In fact, that's what the Joint Parliamentary Committee, when it became a scandal and I had to appear before the JPC, they asked me, you gave this advice, why did you not press this? I tried to tell the members of Parliament that I'm a civil servant. I can only give advice. This is what I felt, I wrote that. But I can't press beyond the point, because if the government decides, a democratically elected government, decides that they're going to give spectrum at a price lower than the market value because there are going to be some secondary benefits, I cannot stand back and say, no, I don't agree with you. Okay? That's what it comes to. Your dharma as civil servant is to give advice, but your dharma as civil servant is to implement what the government decides.
So my next question is with respect to the entry of engineers into civil services. So when you are pursuing MSc Physics from IIT Kanpur, most of your batchmates were thinking of pursuing PhD or going abroad to USA. That's what you have mentioned in the book. So the number of engineers entering into civil services during your times was considerably less. But now these days, the number of engineers entering into civil services has increased. In fact, most of the toppers happen to be engineers. Sir, my question to you in this regard is, so what has changed that suddenly more engineers are trying to get into civil services, sir?
Well, one possible answer is that the civil services has become a more attractive career option. But let me give a more nuanced answer. It's probably true. But let me give a more nuanced answer. When I topped the civil service in 1972, I was still in IIT campus when the results came. Yeah. So I thought I'd be a big hero on campus, that this guy from IIT Kanpur had topped the civil service. Nobody cared. Nobody cared really, except a dozen people. Nobody cared about topping the IAS and all that, because IIT Kanpur at that time was so focused on these engineers and people who studied science and engineering, all the STEM disciplines. They said, we want to go abroad and study in the US or study in India for the studies. You want to go into academics or you want to become engineers in the field. Nobody thought of the IAS as a career, because those days the IAS is to be attributed to people who studied liberal arts. In fact, some people told me, when I was in IIT Kanpur and preparing for the civil service, you're stupid. You should be in Delhi University or you should be in Allahabad University. If you want to join the IAS, IIT Kanpur is the wrong place. But since then, what was in early 70s, we was in some sense the path breakers, but subsequently IIT engineers from engineers across the country, from other engineering colleges have come into the civil services, and it's now become a flood, which is a good thing, I believe, because, in the IAS, what they call as major is less important than the education that you got in college. It's not so much that you studied physics or psychology or economics. What is important is that you've gone to a college. Your mind has expanded. You've been exposed to other peer group. You've been exposed to people, lecturers, professors, teachers who were dedicated their lifetime to teaching. So that's what matters. That's why the qualification for the IAS is just a degree, any degree. So I believe, one of the directors of IIT, I think the director of IIT Madras, who said, you can refer to that, it might come in your interview, for example, a similar question like this. He made a statement saying that IIT engineers going into civil services is a waste of IIT education. Now, suppose I ask you to write 250 words. Why you do not agree with that? Go home and write that. This evening, go home and write 250 words on why you do not agree with that IIT director's view. That's a good way of learning. Okay?
Sir, recently, Sanju Sanyal sir, a member of Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, he made a statement that a very fact that large number of students are entering into civil service examination highlights poverty of aspirations. He was of the opinion that students should aspire to become wealth creators and not just administrators. Sir, in fact, he goes on to say that life in civil services is dull, boring, in certain cases confined to just passing of files. Sir, I just want your opinion as to what should students do. Should they try to become wealth creators, that is entrepreneurs, or administrators? What does India actually need, sir?
Yeah, I'm trying to construct an appropriate response to that. I agree with very little of what Sanyal said. I don't agree with much of what he said, which is that it's a waste of talent. People should go into entrepreneurism. Entrepreneurs are wealth creators. Others are just wasting their time. IAS officers just sign files. That is a very, very false description of the role of IAS officers, or indeed of the role of civil servants across board, not just the IAS, but the IPS and other civil services. Okay? It's not only entrepreneurs who create wealth. It is people who support entrepreneurism, who are helping entrepreneurs create wealth, are also helping. For example, today when I came here to Rouse IAS Study Circle, one driver drove me. Okay? It's not as if I am contributing to IAS Study Circle. He contributed too, right? Without that driver, I wouldn't have been here. So to believe that you have to be directly on the front line to do anything is wrong. If the Prime Minister is able to deliver on some results, it is because of the entire infrastructure behind him that supports him. To believe that he alone does anything and he alone creates wealth is completely wrong. So I disagree with that part of what Sanyal said. The IAS is a noble career option. You can contribute to society, you can add value, But on the other hand, I don't believe that the IAS is the only way of adding value or only way of creating, IAS toppers every year. Why do you want to join the IAS? I want to create wealth. I want to change the world. That is true. But you can change the world in practically everything. You can change the world by becoming a professor. You can change the world by becoming a journalist. You can change the world by becoming a sportswoman. So to believe that the IAS is the only way that you can create wealth or you can change the world is wrong. On the other hand, to believe that the IAS is a nondescript career option, does not create wealth, is also wrong. Okay? Now, the part that I agree with, which is debatable since you're all IAS aspirants, but the part that is somewhat debatable is how many opportunities should civil service aspirants have? What should be the age limit? What should be the method of recruitment into the IAS exam? It's this, there's been a lot of improvement from the time I appeared more than 50 years ago to today, but it is not necessarily the case that the exam today is the best practice. As I was telling your faculty, there are type 1 and type 2 errors. You heard of type 1 and type 2 errors? The type 1 error in the sense that not everybody who's competent gets into the clearest exam. There's type 2 error in the sense that no incompetent person passes the exam. You must avoid both errors. There is no known system of examination that can minimize both these errors. So we try to be the best practice. Whether you must give 6 chances, whether you must have such a large age range is debatable.
So there's an article that you have written. The title of the article was, "Has IAS Failed the Nation?" So why do you think that IAS has failed the nation? And indeed, if it has failed the nation, what reforms do you actually see in the civil services?
Well, that's an entire seminar. But how many of you think the IAS has failed the nation? Just raise your hands. Are any of you children of IAS officers? Your fathers or mothers are IAS officers? Very good, okay. So, I wrote that op-ed 2 years ago. Has the IAS failed the nation? And my binary answer was yes, the IAS has failed the nation. But of course, there are binary answers to such complex questions are always wrong. You need a more nuanced response. The IAS was instituted shortly after independence as a homegrown response to the colonial era ICS, because India was embarking on an unprecedented experiment of anchoring democracy, universal suffrage, in a society of low levels of awareness, low literacy levels. No country has ever done that. The responsibility of delivering on that fell on the IAS officers. In the event, the first cohorts of the IAS officers developed a system of administration that was not only a model for India but model for the world. Greenfield Development Administration built a formidable reputation for the IAS for integrity, commitment, efficiency. But that's changed over the years. Today the IAS does not enjoy that sort of reputation. Ineptitude, inefficiency, corruption, carelessness has stepped in. In fact, I give an example in that thing. When I was early in the service, when I was in 30s, if there was a scandal or a scam, okay, and the chief minister is being grilled in the assembly by the opposition, all he had to do was stand up in the assembly and say, "I heard the members, I'm going to appoint an IAS officer as an inquiry officer." Immediately there would be silence. That is the type of reputation the IAS enjoyed. IAS officer and inquiry officer, they are so impartial that nothing can go wrong. Today, Mamata Banerjee says in the West Bengal Assembly that I'm going to appoint an IAS officer as an inquiry officer, she'll be booed. Right? I mean, do you agree or not? Yes, so, but that is the way the IAS has fallen. The intellectual and moral decline of the IAS. Lots of things are responsible for this. People say it is the recruitment exam, it is the induction training, it is the in-service training, it is opportunities for specialization, it's career management, opportunities for self-improvement. All these things have to change. And you scratch any IAS officer, he says that I was going to do great things, but the politicians came and stopped me. That's the standard excuse of an IAS officer. But politicians are part of the system. In a democracy, political intervention comes with the territory. There have been IAS officers who become politicians. They tell me that being a politician is a different ballgame altogether. Okay? So you have to appreciate the challenges, concerns, problems of politicians. I'm not saying that succumb to them. I'm not saying always fall in line. But don't say no because he's a politician. Okay? So, where you draw the line is very important. And then I believe that the main problem with the IAS is a perverted sense of penalties and rewards. Good performance is not always rewarded. Bad performance is not always penalized. That's one of the problems with the IAS.
So traditionally the role of teacher was to provide knowledge or content to the students. But now we are living in the digital era where students can easily Google out most of the things. In fact, there's an emergence of chat GPT as well. So my question in this particular regard is, since you're now teaching in various foreign universities, how should the teacher evolve themselves in the digital era? And I'm pretty sure whatever advice that you give, it is very valuable to the teachers of Rao's IAS. Yes.
Yeah. I'm not a professional teacher. You're being trained by professional trainers, so you're privileged to have people like him and his colleagues. I'm not a professional teacher. I teach graduate level classes. But there's instruction in the classroom, and now you have other methods of learning, right? Yes. Because when I was learning, if you had a doubt, we had to go back to a textbook. We had to open, if I got a doubt at 10 p.m., I had to wait till the library opened the next morning, go to the library, spend half an hour, 45 minutes, sometime a couple of hours to find something, research that. These days, if 10 p.m. you find something, immediately you hit the buttons and you know. Okay? So information is available to you. But information is not comprehension. Okay? Learning is, your Abhishek sir was telling me, data to information to knowledge to wisdom. There are 4 stages: data, information, knowledge, wisdom. Okay? Data you can get. You can process the data to get information. You get information from ChatGPT. You can even get knowledge from ChatGPT. But converting that knowledge to wisdom is where a teacher can make a difference. Okay? And I believe that both teachers must focus on that. Even in the era of ChatGPT, there is value that teachers can add by helping students go from data to information to knowledge, yes. From knowledge to wisdom is the critical step where teachers can come in.
Thank you, sir. My next question, sir, is with respect to your posting at Kamam district as district collector. So when you got posted as the district collector at Kamam district, you showed a lot of enthusiasm, sir, in hearing individual petitions of the people. You went about with a lot of enthusiasm implementing the land transfer regulation for the upliftment of tribals. But that enthusiasm that you showed, because of that enthusiasm you incurred the wrath of local level politicians who then pressurized the chief minister to transfer you from that particular district. Sir, in that regard, my question is, for these students, how should they tread the fine line, like how should they implement the laws while being enthusiastic at the same time?
Yeah, okay. Again, that's a dilemma IAS officers face, but that's a dilemma you will face in any career. Okay? Not just IAS officers, not just civil servants. Even if you go into a non-civil service career, you will always face the dilemma about what's the right thing to do and where should you back off, where should you push. He was referring to an experience of mine where I tried to implement land transfer regulation, land rights for tribals. And that experiment failed in the sense that I could not achieve the results that I wanted to because I made several mistakes. I write about them in the book. Okay, so in spite of all the enthusiasm, energy, I could not achieve the result. So what do you focus on? Do you focus on the result or do you focus on the process? Process is important. But even more important, you got to be in the right process, right? The process has to have integrity and consistent with law and regulations. But result is important too. And never lose track of the result, what you're trying to achieve. Okay? And where you draw the line in political interference is something that you have to do. Again, I write about that in the book. You know, what is honesty? And where do you draw the line on honesty? If you're the collector of a district and the local MLA comes and invites you to his daughter's wedding, do you go? Okay. I don't know. You say no, you say yes. There are no standard answers. Okay. You might go because it's a social function. Okay. So he's inviting you to his daughter. He's an acquaintance of yours. You know him. He's inviting you to his daughter's wedding. Collector attending his daughter's wedding is a big deal for him. It's good social convention for you. Do you go and take an expensive gift? Again, it's up to you. Do you have a meal? Yes. But what if he invites you to a party? Okay. Do you go? You know, where do you draw a line is different. Some people can be very tight about this. You know, I write, again, I'm wary of saying that I write about this in the book. We used to have a colleague who we'd go to village. You know, typically when you go to village, there are 5 or 6 of you, or 7 or 8 if you go into a village. And then the villagers, what do they give you? They give you coconut water or some sugary, syrupy tea. You can't drink it, but you drink it out of politeness for them because they're offering you with warmth and love. So, but he would say, no, I would not drink this because, you know, I would be beholden to them. That's where he drew the line. Some people draw the line, I'll take coconut water, but I will not go and have a lavish meal. Some people say, I will go to parties, still I will be impartial. So where you draw the line is a matter of personal choice. And it's something that has to be consistent with your character, your personality, and your value system.
So next, there's a funny incident which is mentioned in a book. The funny incident was when you are posted as assistant collector at Parvatipuram. The funny incident was you going to office on Sundays.
Yeah.
Can you just narrate that funny incident to a student, sir?
Yeah. You know, I don't know how it is these days, but 50 years ago, I think it's still mostly like that because I went back there. If you go to old subdivisions, you know, there's an office, there is residence for the sub-collector. And in Parvatipuram, where I was first posted, my first posting, I was still unmarried at that time. There was an office and had a large bungalow. There was only a narrow alley between them. And the town itself was quite far away. The office and the sub-collector's bungalow were quite far away from the town. And there was not much of a barrier or between the office and home. No, these days, like this is your learning. You can't imagine that you'll sleep here tonight, right? You'll lodge here. You have a place to stay and you come here for learning. That sort of barrier was not there between my office and my residence. I was unmarried, so you know, I used to go to the office, come back home, and at night after 8 p.m. it used to become very eerie, you know, dark and nobody around at that time, just my watchman and I. But then on Sundays, I used to go to the office because the maid will clean my house. I don't want to be in her way. So not that I'm working, I just carry the Sunday newspapers, go to the office to read the papers, so that she can clean without my interference. When the staff, sub-collector's office typically has about a dozen people. Staff realized that the sub-collector is coming to the office on Sunday, so I found them. So I thought they were all there because I was coming. I called them and said, look, I'm here because I can't be at home. I don't need you. I'm not doing any work. You people go home. So they packed up and went away. Then 2 Sundays later, I went again. Again, half a dozen people were there. Again, I told them, look, I told you last time, I'm telling you now, I don't need you. Just go away. If I need you, I'll call you. Again, third time I went, again half a dozen people coming there. And I got irritated, because it made me feel uncomfortable that they were encroaching on my freedom of movement by coming to the office. So because they were coming out to stay at home, which is, that is not the best option for me. So I got irritated with them and said, why do you people come? I'm telling you, go home. Then, normally subordinates don't speak up to you, right? But one guy made bold and said, in Andhra, it's a feudal system. They never say you. He said, if the sub-collector pleases, I want to tell him something. Speak in third person. I'll tell you something, you won't say that. If the sub-collector pleases, I'll tell the sub-collector something. I said, okay, go ahead. He said, sir, this is the office. We have small homes, dingy homes. There's no water. There's no electricity. There's small children. Our wife is pestering us. Go to the market and get vegetable oil. Oh, the whole day, the whole week you're not here. Go and get some cleaning thing. Go and get this laundry done. They're pestering us. So we want to escape all that. Come here. We come here. There's a boy to get us tea. We're enjoying ourselves. So do you mind if we come to the office? So that's another thing you learn. Many things you learn in your experience.
So there's another funny incident which happened when you went to US to pursue masters in economics. That was the funny incident which happened at the cocktail party, sir. Can you just narrate that incident as well?
Yeah, I took study leave early in my career, went to the US, Ohio State University to study economics. My first exposure to the US. And America has changed also, but I'm talking about late 70s, early 80s. And in about 6 months, I got used to the system. I was quite comfortably settled. My thesis advisor, one summer evening, he had a party in his house. So he invited some dozen students, his faculty colleagues, their family. There were about 100 people invited for cocktails in his house on a summer evening at 7 p.m. America, those of you who know America, on summer evenings, even at 7 p.m. there's still light. It's very nice, cool, and all that. Cocktails. So, here the party went on for about half an hour, 45 minutes. There were lots of people, lots of conversation. Everybody was having a good time. Then I was talking to my thesis advisor and another friend of mine and his girlfriend. My thesis advisor was Dick Meyer. There's another friend of mine who was also a research student and his girlfriend. They came to Dick Meyer and said, we're going, thank you for inviting us, we're going. And Dick said, okay, yeah, sure, thanks for coming. Then suddenly I blurted out, aren't you guys staying for dinner? Now, suddenly I realized, it was such, both of them were shocked, embarrassed. And then I said something had gone wrong, Then I realized the penny dropped suddenly. I realized that in America, cocktails means cocktails. It doesn't mean dinner. Whereas in India we used to, people invite you for a drink. It's understood that they'll give you food because part of Indian system is that you don't go away without giving food, right? So that's the way you learn about different cultures, different systems.
So my next question is a little heavy, sir. It's about manufacturing sector. So you were involved in the development of industries in the state of Andhra Pradesh. So it is with respect to manufacturing. So India has clearly missed the bus on the manufacturing. India is now completely dominated by services sector. The next phase of growth for Indian economy would come from Industrial Revolution 4.0. It means, sir, like India should be prepared for the next bus, which is Industrial Revolution 4.0. But whenever we read government documents, let's say economic survey, they keep on highlighting that India should focus on low-cost manufacturing like textile and leather. So my question to you is, sir, why should India run behind a bus that we have already missed, that is low-cost manufacturing? Is it not better that we prepare ourselves for the next bus, that is Industrial Revolution 4.2?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's a bit involved, but the bus anomaly does not work exactly, because if you miss this bus, you can actually get onto both buses, and you need to get onto both buses. Those of you who studied economics know that we talk about countries as they develop, as they become rich, they transit from agriculture to industry to services. That's the Rostow's stages of growth, economic growth. Agriculture to industry to services. In the 80s, 1990s, we used to take pride in the fact that we defied that textbook paradigm. India suddenly parachuted, leapfrogged over manufacturing, over industries. We went straight from agriculture to services. So we are a new development model. We defied the textbook example. Now in the 2000s, we realized that actually you cannot sustain growth without manufacturing. Okay? Now I know that services are important. That is what Raghuram, Rajan says. Those of you who read his book know that services is important. He is a distinguished academic intellectual. What he says is right. What he and his colleague, co-author, is saying is that manufacturing is a wide range. There is, actual manufacturing is low value added. Much of value added in manufacturing comes from the front end, which is innovation, design, drawing, etc. And the back end, which is financing, marketing, and selling. The actual manufacturing is low value. India is pouring enormous amounts of money into that low value added thing. You cannot get much mileage out of that. So you should focus on the government's argument is, yes, we know that, but this is the entry point. That we get this and the rest of manufacturing will come. His argument is that it will not come because India is a closed economy. Your tariffs are high. To believe that the entire value chain will come to you is misinformed. So focus on services because we have an advantage. We have the skills. We have. It's now possible to deliver service from a distance. We are the first mover advantage. We should take advantage of that. I agree with all that. But that is no solution to our immediate problem. We should certainly prepare for the services revolution that's coming. But that does not mean that we don't focus on manufacturing. Because there are 100 million people who want jobs in the economy, right? Joblessness is one of the big problems. And there is no way the services sector is going to provide jobs for 100 million people who are either unskilled or at best semi-skilled. The only way you can provide them jobs is in the manufacturing sector. And you talked about textiles, footwear, and all that.
Yes.
Those are important because as much as we must do high-end manufacturing like cell phones and fabs and all that, we must also focus on textiles and toys and footwear because that still is a comparative advantage. Okay? So while we try to improve our comparative advantage in high productive areas, there is still a lot of demand in India and around the world for textiles, for shoes, for toys, and we must focus on that.
So next question, sir, in your book, you mentioned about subsidies and incentives for industries. You have clearly mentioned that giving subsidies or incentives to industries is not the right way to promote manufacturing. So, but if you look at the present production-linked incentive scheme, actually seeks to provide subsidy incentives to industries to increase their production. Raghuram Rajan sir has been a very vocal critic of PLI scheme. So just want to know your opinion on PLI scheme, sir.
I have no informed view on this. It is true that the government is pouring enormous amounts of money. Like I said before, this is one small part of manufacturing, and you're investing money there in the hope that the entire chain of manufacturing will come to you. So you must not lose track of the big picture. You must remember that big picture of what you want done. So far, the narrative, this is another thing about public policy. The government said PLI, but nowhere have they said this is the PLI, this is what we believe PLI will deliver, this is what we will do in order for it to deliver. Nothing. The narrative about PLI is being shaped by critics, right? The government must take on the initiative, the challenge of saying this is what the PLI is, so that the critics can critique you. Now it is critics are critiquing the government, just ignoring them. That is, I think, bad public policy.
So when you became the RBI governor, when your tenure as the RBI governor ended, and you passed on the baton to Raghuram Rajan sir, what was your advice to him, sir?
My advice to him was, there is very competent staff in the Reserve Bank of India, both in senior management as well as down the line. So all relatively less important decisions like interest rate, money supply, regulation, all those relatively less important decisions, you can give them to your subordinates. Really important decisions, like what should be the menu for lunch? What should be the seating order in a meeting? What gift should we give to a visiting dignitary? Those are very important decisions. You focus on them. That's the advice I gave Raghu.
Sir, you have been alumni of Rao's IAS study circle. Sir, we have never met Rao sir actually. So, what was Rao sir like?
Yeah. See, Rao Study Circle is an institution. The fact that Mr. Rao has passed on, the reason the name is maintained, Rao's IAS Study Circle, is because it distinguishes itself from the rest of the IAS coaching centers. That this is a different institution. It's preparing you for the civil services exam, but it is also preparing you for life. It is also preparing you for your careers. No matter what you do after this, you might become an entrepreneur, set up a business, become a journalist, join a corporate company. Whatever you do is preparing you for that. So don't believe that this is a waste if you don't make the civil service. I hope you make it, but if you don't make it, this is not a wasted year or wasted a couple of years. And that, I believe, is what I associate with Rao Study Circle. Mr. Rao was an institution by himself. We used to have the institution in Hotel Palace.
Yeah.
It was much smaller, less formal, less structured at that time. Like in a small hotel room, how do you organize a class? But what I remember of him was that he could assess a candidate and assess her strengths and weaknesses and guide her on correcting her weaknesses, guide her on capitalizing on his strengths. For example, he used to tell me, these days you won't believe it when you see my handwriting. He used to say, Subbarao, one of your strengths is your neat handwriting. Okay? Because when you write something, I believe the civil service is still a pen and paper exam.
Yes.
Okay? Now, your examiner you have the burden of making sure that your examiner is enthusiastic about reading what you write. Now, if you write such a jumbled language, indecipherable, striking out, easy to put off. So make it a happy experience for the examiner to read your script. And that is what Mr. Rao used to, tell us. What I remember of Mr. Rao is one of the, apart from being an institution, tailored individual instruction. Apart from class teaching as a group, individual instruction. Then second thing, you would challenge us. Like I told you, about go home and write 250 words, about why you don't agree with the director of IIT Madras. But he used to challenge us. We used to think that today our class is going to be on anthropology, and he will suddenly say, write an essay on, is India a presidential system of government in practice? It suddenly blurted out. Unexpected things challenge you. That's one of the things I learned from him.
Sir, at the end of the book, you mentioned about your bucket list. Sir, what caught my attention is one of your bucket list is to learn salsa dancing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, did you actually take that?
No, I haven't. Okay, I haven't so far done that, but I hope to do it sometime. Of course, I'm quite old now, but I do hope that there are still opportunities for learning salsa dancing. There are opportunities for learning. Learning is a lifelong thing. But hopefully sometime I'll come and do a salsa dance here. Yeah.
So the last question actually. Sir, you have written one book, Who Moved My Interest Rate, where you discuss about your tenure as RBI governor and now just a mercenary. Now you are writing a third book, which is titled as Asia's Great Convergence. After reading both of your two books, I'm eagerly awaiting for your third book. But I'm also equally curious to know what we can expect in that particular book, Asia's Great Convergence.
Actually, it's not the book that I'm actually writing. It's something that I've thought about, and probably with your encouragement, I might write that. But what's in that book is this: that today the worldview is that the center of gravity is shifting from the west to the east, right? First there was the Japanese miracle in the 1970s and 80s. Then there's the East Asian miracle, the tigers, Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, Korea. Then there's the Chinese miracle. During the 90s and 2000s, China has performed, delivered on double-digit growth on a trot. And now there's India as the new emerging economy, driving global growth. So all this gives a narrative that this is the Asia-Pacific century, that 21st century. I wanted to question that hypothesis. Okay? Can we take that for granted? Given all the challenges about geopolitical tensions, artificial intelligence, backlash against globalization, concerns about climate change, can we take it for granted that the center of gravity is actually shifting, or is this just a temporary blip in a long-term structural thing that is not actually changing? I wanted to examine that question.
Sir, really thank you for this wonderful talk. I feel I'm so blessed to actually talk to you. It's actually a dream come true for me. Thank you so much, sir. Now, I would want the students to ask questions if they have any.
Good evening, sir.
Suchi, one second. If you want coffee or anything, I can.
No, I'm okay.
Okay. So when you were a selector at Khammam district versus when you were lead economist at the World Bank, I just want to know what really transformed you the most as a person?
That's a difficult question. But every experience of you, please sit down. Every experience transforms you in ways that you realize and in ways you don't realize. I was collector Khammam, and as I told you, I had some setbacks. I could not implement some of the programs that I wanted to because some mistakes I made. I learned from that experience, but being collector of a district is one of the, what should I say, one of the most magical jobs you can ever have. One World Bank colleague told me that, Subba, I wish I had the opportunity to be a collector of a district for 2 years. That'll be such a fulfilling experience. See, being a collector of a district is an enormously enriching experience because you are the government for the people, And I don't know if it happens today, but when I was collector or a sub-collector, women would come and complain to you at 10 p.m. that my husband is drunk and is beating me, and she'll come with her children, and you don't know what to do, right? I mean, that's not in your job chart, okay? But people come with problems like that. And, so that you're able to solve them, that they come and talk to you because they believe that you can solve their problems, is an enormously enriching experience, and that transforms you. About the World Bank. World Bank, of course, you do technical things, whatever. I was helping countries in their public finance management. But one of the things I learned from the World Bank is that as much as we are all from different countries, different continents, different cultures, different races, different languages, at a fundamental level, we are all the same. Okay? As human beings, we are all the same. Our frailties, our concerns about our families, about our communities, about our lives, they're all the same. That's an experience that I learned, that no matter which color, which race, which language, which culture, which country, it's the same thing. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, sir. Sir,
It's on.
What's your name?
Sir Diksha.
Riksha. Okay.
So, sir, like you mentioned that you have been studied through Sainik school. So, like, as I have learned, and I also know that while studying from Sainik school, you get a different environment, and the values and the teachings which you get there, they are entirely different. You come out as a unique individual. So, sir, do you think that those things being a studying in a Sainik school has been a good thing while in your preparation, and some of the qualities have helped you in your preparation and in your life?
Most certainly. Please sit down, Riksha. Most certainly. I'm grateful that I went to a Sainik school. Taught me not just in the classroom, taught me not just personality, but values. Because values are very important. In fact, I was telling your faculty that every individual has a personality and a character. We tend to conflate them. We don't think of personality and character as two different things. But they're two different things. Personality is your sense of humor, your energy, enthusiasm, the interest you show in other people, whereas character is truth, loyalty, conviction, courage, the right to stand by the ability to stand by the right thing. Those are character. Unfortunately, both in our families, our parents, teachers in our schools focus on personality. They don't focus on character. What I got from the science school was not just personality but character, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yes. Manoj, stand up and you can ask.
Sir, my question is, sir, first of all, good evening, sir. Sir, my question is that we often see taper tantrum in news. Sir, in future, is it possible that we see that Indian policies are creating unrest in world economy?
Indian policies?
Are creating unrest in world economy, creating economic unrest in world.
Thank you. Please sit down, Manoj. I don't know where you're coming from, but if you're asking in the sense that, in a positive sense, that will India become such a large and globally, systemically important economy, that what happens to India matters to the world? Is that your question?
Yes.
Okay. So far, we're not there. I hope we'll get there. Okay, because there are systemically important countries in the world today, like US, America, China, Europe. What happens in America matters to the rest of the world. What the Federal Reserve does matters to the world. What President Biden decides matters to the world, because America is systemically important. They're 1/4 of the world's GDP. America is a trendsetter. China similarly, largest trading nation in the world, largest manufacturing nation in the world. What China does matters to the world. We're not yet there, but I hope we'll get there. I hope we'll become systemically important, that what India does, if India succeeds, it's a big boost for the world. If India fails, it's a big dip for the world. I hope it becomes like that. Yeah. With a per capita income of 4 trillion in a world GDP of 80 trillion, we are maybe 125% of world GDP. We don't make so much of a difference.
Yes, Satyajit.
Yeah, that girl at the back. Yes, please.
Good evening, sir. My name is Rutuja Patil.
What's your name?
Rutuja Patil.
Okay, Rutuja, yes.
So my question to you is, India being an agrarian economy, what are your views on agriculture being non-taxable in India?
Yeah, thank you, Rutuja. I wish I had, please sit down, please sit down. Actually I'm not very well informed on that, but I know that agriculture taxation is a big issue, and that a lot of people, because agriculture income is not taxed, a lot of people are able to hide their other incomes as agriculture income and dodge taxation. I'm not sure the extent of that leakage of revenue that happens. Perhaps the income tax department should put out a number. But if it's in fact the case that large farmers are able to escape taxation, or rich people are able to escape taxation or by hiding their income as agriculture income, that's a loophole to be filled. I know that every public policy decision, there are no black and white. There's a lot of gray, right? Because if you decide that like that, some other people might be hurt. So you've got to take care of that. I don't know the issue well enough to give a more nuanced response to that.
Yes, Gracie. Yeah, I can speak up.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir. My name is Gracie. I'm a student at Rouse IAS. So my question to you is, a bird's eye view onto your career. One thing that intrigues me is that you continue with your higher studies even after joining the services. I would like to ask what motivated you, and secondly, how did you manage your professional commitments and your commitment to your studies as well? So
Thank you, Gracie, for asking that question. As I told you, I went to IIT, and please sit down, Gracie. And I told you that many of my friends, none of them came into the IAS, they went to the academia or industry. After I put in about 4 years, I realized that some of my friends were earning a PhD from some of the pedigreed institutions in the world, like Caltech, Berkeley, Harvard, MIT, some of them working with Nobel laureates. And then I realized that, my education has come to a stop. I mean, I was learning, of course, education is a lifelong thing, but my formal education has come to a stop. Am I educated enough? Perhaps I should study more. And many senior colleagues, including my father, said, no, you wait for some more time. But I thought that if I wait longer, it might get delayed. Other responsibilities will overtake that. So I thought I'll take the plunge. I had not studied economics before that. So what should I study if I want to study? I thought since I'm in the IAS, what would help me in career progression is exposure to economics. I could have studied IR, I could have studied public administration or political science or psychology, whatever. But I decided to study economics, and I went there. The motivation was actually partly to get a degree, of course, like all the middle class value of another degree. but it's also to learn economics, to equip myself to be a more useful civil servant.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
So my name is Lori. So as we all know that the job of a civil servant requires a lot of public dealing. So sir, I wanted to ask you if there was any one or maybe multiple public interactions or interaction with a resident of a district which really moved you or caused a significant change in the way you think or process the way you work.
No, thank you. I don't know if it changed the way I work, etc. But there have been lots of occasions where I was overwhelmed, touched by the affection that people give you. You know, even today I run into people who say, you know, 30 years ago you did this, you gave me land, or you told my daughter how to study or what to pursue, lots of things. But since you asked for a specific incident, I'll tell you, I was posted as collector Visakhapatnam, and that posting ended 2 months after that, you know, abruptly. So I was going back to Hyderabad. I was in a train, those, you know, not air-conditioned train, or ordinary train where you could put your hand out of the window, etc. I was in a first-class compartment, and I was, that train stopped at a wayside station, still in my district. And then train was actually leaving, okay? And then somebody, he saw me, he recognized me. He said, this guy was our collector, he's been transferred away, and I must have done something for him. He suddenly saw me, the train was leaving, okay? He had to do something for me. He didn't know, you know, somebody was selling cashew. One fellow was selling cashew. He just grabbed a packet of cashew from that fellow because he could pay him afterwards. Yeah. He grabbed a packet of cashew, ran to the train and gave it to me. You know? He was not expecting anything from me. He expected that I wouldn't even see him. But I was so touched by that gesture. You know, lots of things like that, but they move you. I'm sure that they'll happen to you, or they may have already happened to you.
So there was another incident about your dafedar.
Yeah. So thank you, Basa, for reminding me. You know, when you are in a district posting, there's somebody called a dafedar. You know, I don't know what they call them in the North Indian states. You know a dafedar? Who is your attendant with a white turban, orderly, you know, but he's not necessarily in that orderly uniform, but usually in a white turban with that band across with a badge, sub-collector's office or collector's office. Because you wear normal clothes, he's supposed to be the symbol of authority. You know? Normally, the person chosen to be the dafedar of the collector, sub-collector, is chosen out of a rigorous filtering. Somebody with high integrity, loyalty, stoicism, who doesn't talk, doesn't take advantage of being close to you. Now, you can always tell his nephew, oh, I'll tell the sub-collector to give you a job. But they shouldn't do that, no? They shouldn't take advantage of that. So only such people are posted as dafedar. So he goes with you during your office time, is always with you, is the gatekeeper, he comes with you on touring. One morning we were to go on a tour at 7 o'clock in the morning. Normally, you know, when you're leaving at 7 o'clock, by 6 a.m. other staff come, they're ready, getting the jeep ready, putting petrol in it, putting water there, cleaning the place and getting you ready. By 7 a.m. if you're ready, if you're starting, they come early and so that you set off at 7 a.m. So I got out at 7 a.m. and everybody, the jeep driver was there, my camp clerk was there, but dafedar was also there. He wasn't getting into the jeep. I got a bit irritated. You know, I said, you know, why are you standing? Normally you don't speak much. They don't speak much. I said, you know, why are you not getting in? And for the first time I had seen him with a disheveled shirt, not shaved. He still had a turban on, but his shirt was crumpled and his face was ashen, then he had not shaved. So I said, Naidu, why are you not getting in? I said in Telugu, slight irritation in my tone. Then he said, if the sub-collector orders, I want to tell the sub-collector something. I said, yeah, what's it? He said, my wife died at 4 o'clock. So if the sub-collector permits, I'll go and attend to her last rites. I was very deeply touched. This man, his wife of 30 years had died, and he'd come to tell the sub-collector, and he was still prepared. If I said him, come, let's get into the jeep and go, he was prepared to go. Okay? That sort of stoicism, sense of duty, a sense of values and etiquette. I was deeply touched by that. Of course, after I took him in the jeep, went to his house, paid my last respects to his wife, told somebody in the office to assist in the last rites. But that was a deeply moving experience for me. You learn from people. You learn from people like that. No, you don't necessarily learn from your bosses. You learn from everybody around you.
Good evening, sir. My name is Nimisha.
What's your name?
Nimisha.
Nimisha, yeah.
So, sir, I just wanted to know what is the core philosophy of life which you are still holding on to and from which you are getting motivated from the aspirant stage to this stage of your life?
Thank you, Nimisha. I think it's something that people who know me must answer rather than I myself. But it's not as if I like everybody else. I'm not an ideal human being. I have my positives and negatives. I've had my share of people. There are people who like me. There are people who don't like me. I had my share of successes and setbacks. But one thing that I try to do is try to be disciplined and try to do whatever I have to do to the best of my ability. Sometimes, some college in, let's say in Coimbatore, says, sir, can you talk to us on a Zoom call, okay? So we set up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I will set up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, this college in Coimbatore is not very important to me. It's important to them, right? I'm here. I don't think I'm doing them a favor, but still, at least they came and asked me, and I'm not saying Coimbatore just like that. I'm just any college, okay? But then if I log in at 1:55, and they don't log in until 2:10 p.m., then I say, what is this? Okay? So, no matter what it is, I try to be disciplined. I try to be committed to what I have to do. But beyond that, you have to take the world as it comes.
Hi, good evening, sir. My name is Shruti, and I'm glad that I joined IAS so that I can ask a question to you, such a knowledgeable personality. Sir, I wanted to know that during your preparations, you had to learn, or you had to also do the IIT preparations and also for the IAS preparations. So how did you manage it, and what are the sacrifices that you made?
Please.
Your family time did you manage?
Please sit down, Shruti. Yeah.
Thank you.
Actually, I took a semester off in my studies to prepare for the IAS. Right, the IAS, I went back after the written exam to complete my MSc. So it's not as if, I had studied full time for the IAS for 4 months. Okay. Now, at your stage in life, you're not making very many sacrifices. Okay. Because sacrifices or compromises come later in life. Now, of course, if you're in a full-time job and studying for the civil services, then you have to make some sacrifices in terms of free time to do other things, to play games or to invest in yourself. But those are sacrifices. I didn't have to make those sacrifices. How many of you are working? Any of you working? Or are you full-time IAS candidates? You're full-time, okay.
So many of them have left their job.
Okay. So they were full-time workers, now they're full-time IAS aspirants. Very good.
So she has a last question. Nandini?
Where are you from, Anjani?
Nandini, sir.
Nandini, where are you from?
Sir, I'm from Delhi only.
Okay.
First of all, sir, thank you so much. It's really an honor to listen to you, and thank you for your benign presence. My question to you is,
what it felt like having, like seeing people having the currency bearing your signature.
Please sit down, Nandini. You know, when I was governor, if I traveled in the country in a car, I was very fond, I still am fond, of stopping at a roadside school and just barging in, okay? On a surprise visit, yeah, okay? When the governor, you know, comes in a car with the coat and like this, teachers and headmasters are flustered. Who is this guy who's come in? Is he some inspector, school education, director education, somebody? And then very soon they realize, you know, within a minute they realize that this guy is the governor. And it's very easy to introduce the governor. You know, if the Prime Minister comes to a school, how do you introduce the Prime Minister? Okay? That he is the Prime Minister, he lives in Delhi, he attends Parliament, all that. It's very easy to introduce the governor. Right? You know, the teachers would say, oh, this is the guy who signs on your currency note, okay? And little children, and they're 5 or 6 years old, so why don't you try to learn to sign faster so that we have more money? And slightly older children will ask, you know, why don't we print more money so that we'll become a rich country? If a country can become rich by printing more currency, there'll be no poor countries left on the planet. So, Nandini, right? Nandini, the response to your question is, it feels great, yeah, but then you internalize it and, yeah.
So it is really wonderful talking to you.
So, thank you very much. I'm grateful to you. Thank you. Please sit down.